Hey there. We're trying to make this video, my son and I, on how to put different kinds of seats in a LandCruiser. I know a lot of people out there have really hard seats from the factory because they weren't taken care of, and they get sun bleached real hard and they start to tear and rip. So we went through the junkyard one afternoon for 4 hours trying to find the perfect seat that would fit in here really well. These seats have a narrow track, so most seats have a wider track, so you're real limited on what you can use. And we found that the PT Cruiser, hey, the one good thing about a PT Cruiser, they have nice seats and they fit pretty much in a LandCruiser. So this video is going to be about how we fit our PT Cruiser seats in our LandCruiser. So we'll start first by just taking the original seat out. I got these seat covers on here just because you can see everybody that's got a LandCruiser with the leather seats, they got this business going on. Number 14 in a socket, that's all you need. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so when you got your seat out, this is what you're going to see. Now, I was fortunate enough to have 2 extra seats that we got in this LandCruiser that were totally trashed. They're left out in the open for a couple years in the woods, and they were growing mold and everything. So what I did though, before we trashed the seats, is I knew I was gonna put different seats in there, so we took apart the seat tracks. Now, if you don't have an extra pair of seats, you're gonna have to tear apart the seats that you just took out. So essentially what you're going to do is you want this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece. And you can see I got them all right here from my old seats that I took off already. Since we didn't film that, I'll kind of tell you what you need to do. You'll see these little buttons right here. Basically what you're going to have to do, and what I found out was so this is an old track, and after a little bit of trial and error, I found the easiest way was to take your angle grinder and to go in between the tracks here. You see how these line up. When you flip them over, you'll see that there's like a bit that holds this on right here, and then there's usually a spot weld that lives right here. So what I found is easiest to do is just to grind your way through this piece right here, and then also make a deep grind right here too that'll grind to that spot weld, and then take like a chisel and a hammer and just give it a good whack, and it'll just pop right off. And then you're left with this. So you basically want to get all 4 of those off your seat track. Another thing I should mention is when you take these off, you kind of want to make note of the orientation of how they go on the track. So as you can see with mine, I labeled them driver side 1, D1, D2, D3, and D4. So if you look here on my seats, I labeled this one as number 2. So number 2 is the side with the seat belt. You can see how that matches up. The number 1 would be the one without the seat belt. Driver's side number 4 would be the front on the seat belt side, and 3 would be the front on the not seat belt side. So once you have that all figured out, then we can come over to our PT Cruiser seat. Now with the PT Cruiser seat, you're going to get all this bracketry that goes on here on these seats like so. And it basically just take all this crap off. You just take this off. But save your hardware, because these are expensive and nice bolts. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to attach the front ones to the existing captured nuts that are already here. So we'll take our driver's side number 4, it's a small one, which goes on the seatbelt side. So we look here, this is our seatbelt side. So we'll go ahead and put these on like so. And what I do is I just finger tighten them down, because we're going to have to do a little bit of test fitting before we weld these guys on. Do that one. Do you guys like my headband? It's about 100 degrees here in Kansas right now, so if I don't wear this, I'll just get a bunch of sweat in my eyes. It smells good. Isn't that right, Isaac? All right, so we got our front ones on. And what I found with the passenger side that we already did, if you come over here and look, you can see we have our passenger seat in, and how nice it looks there. And it's got that nice armrest to use. And I guess while we're here, I can show you that the only kind of bad thing about it is if you want to get into your center console, this armrest is pretty dang close. You can still get in there, but it'll kind of run into that armrest. So, you know, you could just stow it up if you don't have anybody there, easy access to that. But other than that, they fit in there just right. And they are very comfortable. They don't quite match perfectly, but I wanted to be comfortable, and they're manual seats, which is nice too. You don't have to worry about all the motors and electronic stuff breaking on you. So what we found on that passenger seat is these captured nuts don't fit. We got to go 3 inches down, which puts us about right here. So what we'll do is we'll drill a hole about right here, and then we'll mount these brackets like so. So that's what we're going to work on next. So we took a couple measurements here, and what I found out was on the seatbelt side, if I measure from the outside of that front one to the middle of the eye, I get about 16 3/8 inches. On the other side, if you measure that, you get about 16 1/2. So what we did is we just took our legs here, make sure we got the right one in the right place, and then we just basically did our measurements from here to get 16 3/8 from the outside of this to right about the center line in that bolt hole. The passenger side one, we did this side 16, we did both sides 16 3/8, and one of them wound up a little short from the hole, and we had to make that hole a little bigger so it would line up. So hopefully we won't make the same mistake on this driver's side one. So we got our marks made, we'll get our punch, and I think you know the rest. Now you see we got our holes drilled out here. I went a little too far, made them a little bit too big, so don't make the same mistake that I did there, but it'll be okay because we're gonna be welding these down nice and tight to the seat base. So take your bolt that you took off the seat before and feed it through here. And then I had to go to the hardware store and pick these up. I can't remember, number 10, 125 pitch, I think, I can't remember. But basically, take that bolt with you to the hardware store and find some nuts that fit on there, and then we'll make those nice and tight. Alright, so now we have these finger tight, and we can see how they fit first. And then what we'll do is we'll set it in the car and we'll get everything to line up, and then we'll take our paint pen and we'll make marks on where they go, and then we'll take it out, line up all those marks, and then we get to do the fun stuff. We'll get to weld these all down. We're just gonna make a nice bead down here alongside and around the front. We'll weld these screws and nuts and bolts together, and we'll make everything nice and tight. So we will go see how they fit in the car now. All right, so next what we're gonna do, we got the seat in here, and like I said, those little supports that we're mounting to the floor should be, finger tight. And you can tighten them up a little bit with a socket so they don't like wobble around on you when you try to put the seat in. And you set them in, and then you basically just turn them a little bit, whichever way, inboard or outboard, that need to go so the bolts fit in. And so you can see we have this one is in there, and then our far one back here. Get it in here.
A really tough spot.
Right there. Far one, you can see it right here. Our far one is in. And a good trick on this is don't tighten these down super tight, because then it's harder for the seat to move. So start all the bolts finger tight and then line everything up. And then once you have everything lined up, go ahead and tighten the bolts down. We'll come around to the back. So for the back, you're going to want to move the seat all the way forward so you have access to the back. And you can see on these, you can see how if you look at this one, it's not quite straight. So you can see here, my finger, this bracket is a little angled on the seat track, which is fine. But this is all just part of lining it up. Once we have this lined up, we'll mark everything and then we'll weld it to where it needs to be. So just do the same on these back ones and get them all lined up, and take your paint pen or magic marker or whatever you have and then mark where the brackets go. So we'll do that real quick. All right, so we changed our mind a little bit after the first experience we had with the passenger seat. Essentially what I did was I marked all of it, like I told you with that paint pen, I marked everything. And we had a little bit of problems with that seat fitting in after I welded everything. It was harder to fit in. So I thought it might be easier just to go ahead and do a little tack weld on these brackets so they don't move around while it's still bolted down in the car. So that way it eliminates any moving around of those feet. So doing our safety, we got our fire extinguisher just in case. And I don't have like welding blanket or anything, but I kind of try to put towels down, you know, so hopefully the sparks won't burn holes in anything. So, and I know I'm not exactly dressed for welding really, but we'll be all right. We'll just do we're just doing a little spot weld here. So. Okay, so now we got the seat out and we transferred over to the bench. And you can see our little spot welds held these on here. So what I did is then I just tightened all of our bolts up nice and snug, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll weld these, and we'll put a little weld on the nut so it doesn't back off. And then we'll cross our fingers and hope we did everything right, and hopefully it'll go back into the truck. Now there's going to be a little bit of flexing that you're going to have to do, pushing the tracks in and out, because once it gets all tightened down and you unloosen it, that kind of, you know, the tension's released from the track. So there'll be some pushing and stuff we have to do, but once we get the bolt in there and started, we should be okay. Now I'll warn you on this, we had a problem on the back seat where one of the holes didn't quite line up, and we accidentally got a bolt cross-threaded into the captured nut and ruined one of our bolts and the captured nut, so we had to bust out the tap and die set and retap it to a different size, which hopefully you won't have that problem, but all is well now for us. Now we got that fixed. But anyway, we're gonna go to the welding camera and we'll do these welds real quick and we'll see how it fits in the truck. Okay, since we got everything welded up pretty well, while we let that cool off, we're going to work on taking our seat belt, what do you call it, the female receptacle or whatever. We're going to take it out, and there's a little bit of fabrication we got to do to it too. Okay, so apparently there's a little hidden screw back here on the back side you got to take off, and then that'll allow that piece to come apart. So when we got rid of our old seats, we remembered to take one of these off, the old seat, and that's what I used on the passenger side, and we forgot to take the other one off. So basically we're going to have to take this one . Unplug this dude. Okay, got that. So what we get to do with this, Straighten here. This isn't quite long enough to reach. It's too short to reach on this seat, as you can see. If we were to mount it, see, it's not quite long enough. So what we did on the other seat is we basically welded these two pieces together like so to extend that out and make it longer so it would fit through. So we're gonna weld this up and we will show you what it looks like when we're done. So apparently I just found this out, the PT Cruiser seats doesn't look like it has a sensor for when your seatbelt's plugged in or not. They must do that some other way, so I don't think we're going to be able to retrofit this in. So what we're just going to do is we're just going to short those two wires together. Hopefully that'll make it so the light stays off. So here we go, we got that. Another thing that you can do are these little tabs here on the side. We're not going to need these, so you might be able to just break those off like so. Taking those off now. So another thing is you can see how these are curved a little bit. We want to straighten this out a little bit this way so it fits in and doesn't rub against your seat. So just put it in your vise and just kind of give it a little bit of a push. Now you can see pretty straight, and then now we can get it. All right, so we kind of fit this in and basically just took my marker and kind of marked it where it needs to be. There's like some kind of rubberized undercoating. Oh, another thing I should tell you, the original PT Cruiser one has a nylon webbing that attaches to this that goes to the female receiver. So you'll have to cut that nylon webbing off. Just take your bench grinder or whatever. We're going to grind all this plastic coating off of here and here so we can do some welding. Some pretty tough stuff. The wire brush has a hard time getting it off sometimes. Alright, so the general idea here is this will mount here. Make sure that your red press button is facing out. If you got it this way, it's going to be hard to get your seatbelt undone, so you want it to be flipped like so. So basically, what I do is I kind of use this edge right here as a guide, you know. Actually, that second, I think on the passenger side one, I trimmed that down a little bit. So you can see how it fits nice and neat right there, and we'll just clamp that down with a vice grip, and we will just weld it to basically be what we're going to weld everything. We'll weld right around here, we'll weld this full, and we'll flip it over, and we'll weld the back side and flip it full, so it'll be like one big gigantic chunk of metal. Hopefully this won't melt in the meantime. The passenger side did not have that. So my welder, it's an old Lincoln SP100T. Seems to be, it likes to be at a setting about D on the heat and about 4 on the wire speed for all this welding that I've kind of been doing. Now, I don't claim to be a good welder by any means, but you know, hopefully it'll work out. We're gonna let this cool off a little bit, so I don't think there's anything inside that seatbelt you can damage, but this is getting pretty warm. I don't want to melt anything, so we'll let that cool off and do the other side. All right, we let it cool down a bit, and it got those wires got pretty hot. I don't think they melted through. Hopefully they'll be okay, but beware of that when you're doing this side. Okay, so this is your trim piece that's going to come off the PT Cruiser. It would go on like so. Now the problem that we run into on a LandCruiser is this part right here runs into the transmission tunnel, and then the seat won't scoot all the way up. So I just decided I would cut that off and make it look like so. You don't really see that anyway since it's right up against the transmission hump. So put our seatbelt in, and the seatbelt on the driver's side one, I was able just to cut this piece off, but on the passenger side one, I had to cut out this kind of like this. You'll see whenever you get in there and cutting this stuff out how it's going to fit best for you. So just a little note on what I did to get that out of the way. And I just used a pair of like yellow handled sheet metal cutters, and I scored it first with a like a box cutter. You know, draw a line where you want to cut it and then score it with the box cutter, and you can kind of just do this and it'll break right on that line. So that's the way I did it. All right, we got these welded up. We're gonna take some solvent and just kind of clean everything up, and then we'll throw a little bit of paint on it just to keep it from rusting. I like to use a tractor paint that I get at the tractor supply store. It seems to be, it's made by Rust-Oleum, I think, but it seems to be a little bit better, a little more robust, sticks a little better, lasts a little longer. I get it at our farm supply store here. So. All right, do that real quick. Good to go. This is the stuff I like to use. I mean, I've used Pour 15 and Eastwoods. I mean, I've used all kinds of different paints and stuff, and those are so hard to use and so hard to get. I found that this stuff works pretty good as long as you have a clean surface to work with. It sticks pretty well. And it's cheap, and I can get it in town. All right, so here's our buckle that we got all welded. Basically just weld anything that you see, you know, weld the outsides and fill up the inside and just kind of make it one piece. And sorry I didn't get a picture of it before we painted it, but we threw a coat of paint on it, threw a coat of paint on these dudes here, and we'll let this set overnight and dry, and then tomorrow we'll pick back up and we'll get it in the car, and hopefully everything will go good and we'll have new PT Cruiser seats in our LandCruiser. See you later. Hey, we're back. We got all the paints dried up and we put our seatbelt receiver back on here. Just get your Torx bolt, and I added a little blue Loctite to it so it won't back out. And here's our cover. We'll put our cover back on, and it looks like it doesn't want to fit. We're going to have to do some trimming. So we will see how that goes. We'll be right back for that. Okay, so I just kind of set it on here and drew what looked like might be enough to cut out so this will lay flat. And then I just take like a razor knife and score my line that I drew on there, and then you can kind of just work this back and forth. And it should just kind of tear off like so. Okay. Let's see if that, might want to trim a little bit of that off. Just get some side cutters here. What do you think, Isaac?
Looks good.
Sounds like it needs to come off a little bit more here. Okay, so it's not rocket science. Basically just use whatever method you find works best to trim this up. I found a file and a bench grinder helps to kind of shave some of the plastic off there. And we'll just button it back up. You want to probably do this while the seat's off because it'll be hard to get to if you try to do it with the seat in there. All right, next step, we'll get ready to put it into the truck and hopefully see how it fits. Okay, so we tested this wiring here, trying to figure out what makes it work. And it looks like you'd want to go black and white from the LandCruiser to the black wire on the PT Cruiser seat, and the blue and black wire to the red and green wire. Now, I had an extra plug from my donor seats that I cut off that I'm just going to use in place, just so it'll plug right in. If you don't have that extra plug, you'll just have to, use some, pick your method. If you want to solder it in there, cool. If you want to use some of those quick connects, to tap in, that's cool too, but that's what you want to do. So you can see here. Oh, it's not going to do it now. Let me. Our connections were just a little shabby. There they go. It works like that. Okay. So we'll get that fixed up and then we'll button them down and see what happens. All right, I'm enjoying this lovely 125% humidity, 100 degrees and 8 o'clock Kansas weather. So we got the seat in there and we got everything lined up. It's gonna take some, like I said before, some moving and kind of pulling and that kind of stuff. And try not to tighten them all down one up at a time. You leave them, get them all started and leave them loose and then start to tighten them down. Easier to fit in that way. So we got the front two tight. We're gonna move back here to get the back ones. There we go. Yeah. See if it works here. Yeah, up. For your short little wife that drives the LandCruiser, now she can see over the hood. Down. And I'm about 6'1", and I probably gained a good inch of leg room from the electric ones. And this is a serious plus. This armrest is awesome. So there you have it. That's how you put in a pair of PT Cruiser seats in a LandCruiser. I want to show you my assistant here that's been helping me out.
Hey guys.
That's my boy Isaac. He's been doing all the video stuff for me, so thanks, buddy.
No problem, man. Happy to do it.
Well, tune in for next time for a new tip for the LandCruiser.
See you guys later.